Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi everybody, I'm Ken Calvert alongside the good Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. Friends of the Father Joe podcast know that the COVID world we now live in is constantly changing. One of the great success stories to adapt, provide, and serve, well, that's our friends at Starlink, and I encourage you to start the process by simply going to www.starlincoln.com. It's right there. Check out the new vehicle inventory, and what an inventory it is. Oh, by the way, our certified pre-owned vehicles, well, they're abundant and in near-perfect condition. Our award-winning service department remains by appointment only, but they're open from 8 until 6 p.m. However, we're now accepting walk-ins for new vehicle sales, and those hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I have to tell you, as a Star customer for 2 decades, I have never seen a stronger lineup of new vehicles. 248-354-4900, 248-354-4900. Star Lincoln, located right there on 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph, home of the Star treatment. You know, I like to look around before we get started each and every week, and I found this on DetroitCatholic.com. Enrollment healthy as seminarians, lay students, and instructors face historic challenges head-on, all with confidence in God. Talking about COVID, of course, and Sacred Heart Seminary. I have only visited Sacred Heart Seminary a couple of times in my life. It's a beautiful facility.
Oh, it is.
Older facility. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And perhaps, well, describe it a little bit for us. Could you do that?
Well, yeah, I think it's probably, I'm going to guess it's about 60 years old with that kind of an architecture, which exudes a lot of warmth and a welcoming spirit. Certainly a religious spirit. The chapel is beautiful. There's no question in my mind. There's a lot of room for people to space themselves so that they wouldn't be one next to each other, on top of each other, as it were. Beautiful refectory. It's a very, very nice setup for the seminarians. And the seminarians come from different places, but mostly from Detroit. Mm-hmm. But there are seminarians there from Poland and seminarians there from other places as well. People who wish to do their studies at that particular seminary, they're able to apply, and if they get in, they could be there and intermingle with the other students and so on and so forth. Take the curriculum that's given to them, and it seems to work out very well.
Highly respected as seminaries go?
Oh, it is, but there's so many seminaries. And I would say this, that the seminaries just, how should I put it?
Like other
keep up with the times.
Like other colleges compete?
Well, no, there's no competition because it's primarily for a particular diocese. There are a few international seminaries. For example, there's a place in Rome which is right off the Janiculum Hill in Rome, and it's the American Seminary for people who their bishops think they have some real potential. And so they send them to Rome to study. Or just because they want to go to study, if the bishop finds everything okay, usually they'll send them. So it's an international setup because in Rome you have American seminaries, the Irish seminary, the Italian seminary. You have all of the, many of the the Polish seminary and so on. But what's good about that is that there's a lot of interaction outside of the seminary. Now, a seminary in Rome is a place where people live as opposed to where people study. The reason I say that, because the Italian word is collegio, or college, the North American college is called, but the word college means a residence or a gathering of people. So people live there, but they study at the various universities. For example, the Gregorian University, which is the Jesuit one, the Pontifical University of St. Thomas, which is the Dominican one. There's so many different seminaries or schools, universities that they could go to. What's nice about that is after they finish their studies, whatever their field is, they come back and they could discuss these things at table. For example, some people are highly interested in liturgy. Some people are interested in dogmatic theology. Some people are interested in moral theology. So dinner discussions can be very interesting when you bring all of these people together at the college, because they don't do their studies at the college, they do it at the universities. So, difference is this. In the United States, like Sacred Heart Seminary would be both a college where people gather, but it's also a place of study.
Wow. I had no idea. You made it almost sound like a paint store, the way you described it. I'm serious.
In what way?
Well, when you talk about Rome and the various, I don't know if you would call it...
national seminaries, excuse me.
Okay, we'll let that go, but we're going to leave that in. Okay?
Do what you want.
Yeah, national seminaries. I didn't know that there were specific nationality assignments to the seminaries in Rome. In other words, I didn't know that various nations would travel to Rome to do a Polish seminary.
Well, what they've done is this. They have built those seminaries themselves, or they bought those seminaries themselves. So they're going to their own seminary, but it's in Rome. Now, for example, I happen to know a very little bit about the North American College, which there are two North American colleges, and I'll explain why. Right near the Fountain of Trevi, there's a place called Casa Santa Maria, and the Casa Santa Maria was originally bought by the American bishops in 1850, and they bought it specifically for their own students who would want to study in Rome. And therefore they would go to different universities, but they lived at the Casa Santa Maria. By 1940, let's say 40 or around thereabouts, they built the North American College near the Janiculum Hill. And it is a walking distance, there's no question. But what happened is this, that the seminarians then all moved to the North American College near or on the Janiculum Hill, but then they used the Casa Santa Maria for priests who were going to do further studies in Rome. And that's ideally where, we might have 100 priests from the United States. They're already priests, and they're studying different disciplines. So, for example, you have canon law, and they may go to two places, or you have dogmatic theology, they may go to 4 or 5 places, whatever it is. But the good thing about that is when they gather for dinner at night, the discussions have much more interest because they can discuss different disciplines together.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating.
So you have, I lived at the Casa Santa Maria for 3 years, so I'm familiar with that place. Janiculum Hill, the North American College, was built in around 1940. It's a beautiful, beautiful setup, and that's where the seminarians go.
Getting back to Sacred Heart, if I'm inclined to have a vocation to be a priest,
right,
my first instinct would be to probably visit Sacred Heart, correct?
Correct, yes.
I can't imagine being young enough and at the same time being savvy or broad enough to realize I want to go outside the ropes and go to Rome, unless somebody directed me in that area.
Yeah, let me explain a little bit how that works, because it's not up to the individual, basically.
Okay.
So what happens is this, I think, if somebody's interested in priesthood, ordinarily they would go to their parish priest.
Yeah.
And they'll present their cases in front of them and say, listen, I have thought about this, I prayed over this, I really want to be a priest.
Now, can I stop you for a second? Is it a little bit maybe like the academies, the Naval Academy, the, West Points?
I'm not sure.
In other words, you go before someone and wonder if you're possibly accepted into the program.
Yeah, of course, because you have to go through psychological testing.
Yeah.
So especially today, they don't just take people in,
Yeah.
Just at random. So people have to go through a series of, whatever you do for an application for a college, basically.
Yeah. All right.
What is your academic background? Psychologically, how do you fit in, and all of this other stuff.
Do you have to have good grades?
Well, you have to have enough to get through.
Yeah, right.
We just celebrated the feast of St. John Vianney.
Yeah, the patron saint of
parish
priests.
But by the same token, he could barely get through his Latin. He almost didn't. And in the beginning, they just had him in his godforsaken place to say Mass and hear confessions.
And blessed Solanus Casey.
Yeah, he's another one. Yeah. So, but basically... you want to get through the seminary, you have to have some academic ability.
Okay.
And so they at least measure you for that.
So you approach your parish priest.
And he works things out for you if you qualify.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, if you qualify, then is it on the parish priest, the pastor, to say, I recommend that you go to Sacred Heart Seminary, or I recommend that you go in this area? Or does the student, the one with the vocation, already have a direction that he would like to go into?
Well, you can always say what you want, but you don't have a choice.
Well,
really.
I mean, but if you want to be a Jesuit, you want to be a Jesuit.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, that's different. No,
okay.
no. We're not speaking about seminaries there. You see, religious life is different than diocesan priesthood.
Right.
So if you speak about Sacred Heart, it has nothing to do with Jesuits.
Oh, okay. I mean, then put that aside and let's get back to just
that's a religious vocation.
Right. Okay. So the student has already decided wants to be a diocesan priest.
Yeah, he wants to be a priest. He may not be sure completely, but after discussions and maybe with a spiritual director, and then after applying, making sure that everything is up to date and everything fits in nicely, then, of course, he's admitted into the seminary. There might be, at some point, an intervention by someone who will say, listen here, John, I hope you don't mind, but I think you should do your studies in Rome. Would that be okay? And I think the seminarian will say yes or no. But that can happen. So it's not just, I want to go study in Rome. Well, that's not the way it works.
Oh.
So you have to be asked, basically.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you must have to have special qualifications at that point, I would think.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes. Everybody has to have special qualifications, but by the same token, ordinarily, the way to the priesthood is through your ordinary seminary. Now, here's another thing that plays into this.
Yeah.
The bishop has the last word. If the bishop doesn't like that seminary, you're not going there.
Wait a minute. If the bishop doesn't like that seminary, you're not going there.
Right.
I'm 17. I want to go to Sacred Heart. The bishop, in our case, the archbishop, well, he would naturally like Sacred Heart Seminary.
Yeah, but there is another choice. For example...
The one on some water? Like Orchard Lake?
No, because that's a Polish seminary.
Okay. Boy, it does get confusing.
It's very complicated because, first of all, religious do not fit into the diocesan priesthood situation unless the young man has a vocation. After discussing all of this with the priest, and he says to the priest, I've always wanted to be a college professor. Wow, that rings a bell in that priest's mind. Says, well, you think you could live out the religious life where there would be a certain type of regimen to it. You have morning prayers together and you have special studies, and then eventually, if you qualify, you could teach at the various universities. Yeah, I think that's what I would like to do. Well, look, the diocesan priesthood is not for you. I think you might want to consider one of the religious orders. So you could consider the Jesuits, the The Franciscans also have a couple of colleges, not as many, but you can look at those orders and see if you would fit in there. So basically, you're given some guidance. Now, when we speak about Sacred Heart, it's a mainstream type of situation. Here's a young man. He wants to be a priest. He lives in Detroit or in Michigan, and it's only natural that Sacred Heart would be the one he would consider. And the bishop works with him that. Now, if other circumstances warrant, the bishop might say, well, why don't you go to Rome? Or maybe you're interested in religious life. This is not it. So I think things evolve.
This is fascinating to me.
Well,
absolutely fascinating.
I'm glad. It's a matter of, you discuss these things with some guidance. You find out where you really want to be.
I really like the expression that you used in Rome where you would, I think you called it the table, where these...
Oh, for dinner time.
Yeah, dinner time, these various...
different theologies
come together and discuss. And do you call each other father at that point? I mean,
no, you know each other as John, Joe, whatever.
All right, so hey, Jerry, tell me a little bit about this. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we're already priests.
Yeah.
And, when priests meet priests, they just give their first name. They don't.
Right, yeah. Getting back to the seminary, and we've basically not even talked about the fact that the challenge is, first of all, getting students to follow their vocations. We all know that we're graduating maybe 3 or 4 priests ordained a year, and you throw in a COVID scenario, and it's even more difficult, but it's great to see that Sacred Heart Seminary here in Detroit is doing a great job with 26 students and following all the protocols.
Yeah, I really don't know the numbers, but I think it's interesting what you say, because it presents a lot of challenges, because they have a prayer life together as well.
Sure.
There's a daily mass.
Right.
There's common prayer in the morning.
Yep.
They have to get used to saying the office. So all of that is part of their day as a seminarian. And then there's a recreation time where people have to do something so that their mind is cleared for a while from their studies and so on. They have to do these things even with the challenges of maybe having to wear a mask a lot of that time, and then social distancing and all of these things.
God bless those who follow the vocation.
I do think so, yeah. I think it's not easy.
Yeah.
Perseverance is always a major goal, and so we have to keep praying for these young people so that they will fulfill their goals.
So if I were to say, and final question for you before your prayer, so if I said to my pastor, who then took it to the Archbishop, but I said to the pastor, let's say Pastor Father Joe Grimaldi, I said, I want to work with the homeless, the hungry, the down and out. You would say to me, Ken, I would go in this direction. Where would you send me? Where would you suggest I go?
Well, you mentioned certain general terms that even a diocesan priest can do, for that matter.
Sure.
So you try to give him as many choices as possible. Look at these different religious orders. Look at the diocesan priesthood. What is their main work? See how they could do all of these other things as well. So it's a matter of guidance that doesn't take just one session. It's a matter of speaking with the individual a number of times so that you could get the information from him so that the priest could point them in the right direction.
And you've said before, praying over it.
Always.
Yeah, and hoping to get the direction through prayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, perfect segue. You got a prayer for us today? No?
We need to pray for people to have wisdom for the upcoming election. And as Catholics, we're required to at least look at these different individuals, at these different topics, and make a decision, at least with some knowledge. First of all, religious liberty is very important, and we as Catholics should give it a lot of attention. Our nation was founded on the laws of nature and nature's God. Do we still share this fundamental belief. For those who do believe, is that belief fostered or threatened by our culture and its leaders? Another thing we have to look at is the sanctity of life, from conception until natural death. Pope Francis has said that without the right to life, no other right has meaning. What can we do to halt and reverse the hidden holocaust of abortion and other things of that sort, knowing that there is life has sanctity, and that's what we keep in mind. The unity of the races, I think that has to be also incorporated in our thinking. God has made every person in his image and likeness, and yet we often live with biases, prejudices, and closed hearts to people who are different from us. How can we all, as individuals and as committees, work toward justice, dignity, and equality for all in our land? Welcoming newcomers, that gets to be a touchy subject, but our country is a country of immigrants and people who still are coming to escape their persecution, oppression, and debilitating poverty. How can we more effectively welcome immigrants? A care for the poor and the homeless. What can be done to provide all with good health care, mental and physical? So, folks, what I'm saying is this. I think we have to pray hard, so that when we make decisions, we see that we cover all of those areas, and hopefully we pray for wisdom to choose the right leaders. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.